Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching the final episode of Jacket Sports Weekly for the 2024-25 academic school year. I am Meg Barry, and here on this episode, we are going to be talking about men's and women's track and field, men's and women's tennis, and baseball and softball to round out our academic season. We really hope that you've enjoyed Jacket Sports Weekly, and instead of top 10 plays of the month, there's going to be top 10 plays of the year here on this episode. So don't go anywhere. You're watching Jacket Sports Weekly.
Welcome to Jacket Sports Weekly, Waynesburg University's weekly sports show where we cover the best of the best in athletics. Our analysts discuss a multitude of highlight plays such as touchdown passes.
And Barber's going to throw again, one-on-one. Does he got it in him? That's a catch! Tyler Richmond with flags thrown everywhere makes the catch! Touchdown Waynesburg!
And ones.
Whistles blow, Waynesburg's going to get it! Suggs is going to pull away here, go for the layup, and it's going to fall in and one! PJ Suggs!
And home runs.
Higgins drives one to left field. The left fielder running back, and that ball is out of here. Grace Higgins.
Join us every Wednesday to see what's new in Waynesburg University athletics.
Welcome into Jacket Sports Weekly for our first segment of the show. We're going to be talking about men's and women's track and field as they head to the PAC championships this week on Thursday and Friday. And to join us to talk about the men's and women's team is none other than Michael McKenzie. Mike, welcome to the last episode.
It's the last one. Let's hope we end it off right.
Yeah, right. So happy that you're here. So we'll focus on the men's side first, and then we'll go over to the women's. So big athletes on the men's side: Jacob Harker, Adam Helbling, Quentin Weaver, Kyle Casella, and then that 4x4 team with Weaver, Casella, Dagan Williams, and Aaron Sanders. So really amazing athletes on that men's side. But I've touched upon them, but besides them, or if you want to go in more detail, because you can, who are some of the big athletes to look forward to as we head into Thursday and Friday for the PAC Conference?
Well, obviously, if we're going to do athletes to watch, I know that you mentioned the name, but we have to talk about Jacob Harker. I know we've talked about him pretty much every episode so far, but twice this year he's broken the shot put outdoor track and field record for Waynesburg. First time he broke the old record, then he broke his own record in the Mountaineer Twilight meet a couple of weeks ago. He also broke the hammer throw record in that meet, so he's got multiple Waynesburg outdoor track and field records. So obviously you're watching him, maybe a first place finish at the PAC Outdoor Championships. We'll get into that later with the PAC Outdoor Championships, but we're looking at him. We're looking at Quentin Weaver. Obviously, he has so many records that he set last year. He hasn't broken as many this year, but he's still putting up really good times, top times among PAC competitors, D3 competitors at these wide meets with D1, D2, and D3 athletes. Now that we get down to PAC Outdoor Championships against conference opponents, we're probably going to see the high finishes from Quentin Weaver. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a couple of first place finishes from him. And then that 4x4 team, we haven't talked about them as much, but they have continuously put up top 5, top 3 finishes at these meets. I wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to finish top 2 or maybe number 1 in the PAC Outdoor Championships. We haven't talked about them as much, but that outdoor 4x4 team, they've put together a really solid season.
No, they definitely have, especially within the indoor season, placing 3rd in the pack. So I have really good hopes for them coming into outdoor season. The weather's supposed to be nice, so I think that they'll be super successful. But my next question for you is, last year, the men's team placed really high for the first time since 2017. They had a stellar year last year, but the difference between last year and this year is they had a really strong distance core. They had a lot of distance runners last year that scored them a lot of points early on in the meet. So what's the transitions, how they can still be successful despite not having that distance core this year?
I think as a team, you're going to have to look towards first place finishes for a lot of points. So specifically Jacob Harker, maybe in the shot put, maybe in the hammer throw. He's placed top 3 in the PAC in those 2 events. Maybe he can get a first place finish at the PAC Championships. You're looking at Quentin Weaver, maybe a first place finish or 2. He's going to run in multiple events. Maybe that 4x4 team. I know that they don't have the distance core, but that 4x4 team is still very solid. If they can get a top 3 finish, I think you have to get more top end finishes, second place, first place finishes, as opposed to the wide variety of podiums that the team was on last year. So many individual athletes, so many distance teams were on podiums, but it wasn't necessarily an abundance of first place finishes. Maybe they have to get some more first place finishes this year, get some more top end points from guys like Harper, guys like Weaver, guys like Helbling, Casella, those athletes. They might have to get them a few more points as a team to boost that score back up to the level it was last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And then before we move on to the women's side of things, we've touched upon Harker, but Harker right now is placed only in the top 3 of shot put. However, he's definitely building, and every time he competes against these pack athletes, it's like a different level. He's so much, I've talked to him in person about it, and he said he's just more comfortable and he goes in with a confidence. So what can Harker do to take that confidence and shot put, transition it over to discus, and help to be even more successful for the field athletes and to hopefully get the men higher up in overall placing this year?
I think that the PAC Outdoor Championships are obviously going to be a very competitive meet, one of the most, if not the most important, before we get into true postseason meets in action. So I think that he has to channel that adrenaline. There's obviously going to be an extra edge to Harker knowing how he operates. He's got to channel that in the right way, be able to control his emotions, but also have that extra edge, have the extra adrenaline boost, and use it in a good way. I've talked about that not only in track and field, but other sports. You've got to use that adrenaline, use that extra energy in the right way. If you can channel it in that way, maybe he could get a top 3 finish in discus. Maybe the shot put he finishes number 1, even though it's only been in the top 3 this season for the PAC. It's all about channeling that adrenaline, channeling that energy in the right way, in a positive way, that he can get those extra few tenths or hundredths of a meter. That may be the difference between a 3rd place finish and a 1st place finish, and however many points that may be in the PAC Outdoor Championships.
Yeah, absolutely. Now to transition to the women's side of things, the field is absolutely dominant for the women this year between Ella Rochelle in long jump and triple jump, but also Ella Rochelle in the 200-meter dash and the 400-meter dash and the 4x4. She's been a crucial piece of this team so far. Myself and Natalie Double in women's javelin, along with Maggie Claire in shot put. And then transitioning onto the track, you see the great strong distance runner of Grace Tanksley in the 5K and the 10K. So again, just who are some of those big athletes to watch that will propel this team to place higher than 8th as they did last year?
Well, same as we talked about Jacob Harker, we've talked a lot about Ella Rochelle, and rightfully so. She's busy every single meet, and she's always finishing in the top end. She set the program record for the 400-meter. She set a number of program records this season in field events, like you mentioned. So she's probably going to have to get a number of top 3, maybe even 1st place finishes the same way Harker will. For the men, we talked about Grace Tanksley. At the beginning of the season, she wasn't necessarily being talked about at great length, but you placed 1st place in the 5K, not at the Mountaineer Twilight meet, but the meet before that one. She's starting to get those top 3 finishes in meets overall. She had the 1st place finish about 3 weeks ago in Waynesburg's outdoor event. I wouldn't be surprised if she can find a way to finish 1st place in the 10K or the 5K at the PAC Outdoor Championships. And then you mentioned at the field events, again, especially Natalie Double with the javelin throw, yourself with the javelin throw, a number of top 5 and top 10 finishes for both of you this season. And then Riley Baker early in the season came very close to the hammer throw record, just a few hundredths of a meter off. She set the 2nd and 3rd farthest hammer throws, so maybe she can get back to that, a top 3 finish in the hammer throw. But you mentioned it, the field events are really going to be the highlight, the spotlight for the women at the Outdoor Championships.
Yeah, and then just one final question to wrap up here is the weather. It's going to be hot. It's going to be in the high 70s and things of that nature, and the only warm meet that we've had all season was the Twilight meet, where only about 7 to 8 athletes competed. So for both sides of this, how can the team adjust to the weather to be prepared come Thursday and Friday?
I think I was never a track and field athlete, but I played a number of athletics in middle school and high school. So speaking from experience, especially, at least I played baseball. And when we played in hot weather early on the 1st inning, 2, maybe 3, you know, you're ready to go, great weather, great day for baseball. And then you get into the later innings of the game. You get towards the back end of the meet, maybe, as we're trying to use the metaphor here. You start to labor a little bit. You start to feel the weather, the heat bearing down on you, a lot of sweat. So it's all about being able to stay level-headed throughout the entire meet. Don't get too high early when you come out here. Especially, you mentioned it, for a number of these athletes in the Outdoor Championships, they've never competed this season in the weather that we're going to see this weekend. So it's all about not getting too high early. Oh, it's finally a great day out here to run, throw, jump, whatever your event may be. Can't wait to get to compete. And then we're halfway through the championships. You still got an event or 2 left, and you're sweating, and you're just tired, exhausted. You have to stay level-headed throughout. Don't get too high early, don't get too low late. You have to try to stay at the same level of energy throughout. It's going to be tough, speaking from experience, at least at the high school level at baseball. It's tough to do that, but you have to find a way, whatever that may be for each individual athlete. I know each individual athlete has their own routine for doing certain things. So you have to stay level-headed, stay at the same level of energy throughout the entire meet. Don't get too high early, don't get too low late.
Yeah, absolutely. Have your sunglasses and your water bottle.
Some sunscreen too. Don't want to get sunburned.
Definitely need the sunscreen.
Need the sunscreen, yeah.
But
50
thank you.
SPF.
Yeah. Right. Thank you, Michael, for joining us here on the last segment of Track and Field on JSW. Coming up next is going to be Mia Hankins with the men's and women's tennis team. Welcome back into Jacket Sports Weekly. Now we are going to transition into the tennis courts here on Jacket Sports Weekly, and sitting down with me to talk about men's and women's tennis is none other than our co-producer Mia Hankins.
Hello,
Thank you for joining me today, Mia.
Of course, thank you for having me.
So the season's wrapped up for both the men and the women. Women primarily play in the fall, men primarily in the spring. However, they do dabble. The men play a couple games in the fall, women a couple games in the spring. But now their season is finally over, concluding. So the men finished 2-9 overall, 1-7 in the pack, and the women finished 2-12 overall, 0-8 in the pack.
Yes.
So my first question for you is from both sides, for the men and the women. What are things that they can do? This is a very growing program. Pettit just stepped in to be the head coach of this team. So what are some of the things that both of these teams can do to continue to grow and to build on some team success?
I think when it comes to what can help them be better next year, I think it's really just all about the energy that they bring onto the court. I talked to Coach Pettit earlier this season. I talked about it a little bit last episode as well. Coach Pettit said that he has some freshmen this year that have really brought the energy, and that's kind of what's helped them. Even though they didn't have a great season, it was definitely an improvement from last season too. So seeing that improvement from certain freshmen like Sam Norris, Ethan Clausen, I think that's really helped. So I think that energy overall is what can help. Also, just getting extra reps on the court. I feel like there are a lot of athletes on the tennis team that are also double athletes. Some play soccer, some play basketball. So tennis is kind of their second sport, you know, so they maybe don't focus on it as much as their main sport. So maybe just getting those extra reps on the tennis court like they would the basketball court or the soccer field, I think that that would really help as well. Obviously playing two sports is very hard in college. I'm not putting that down at all. However, you know, just maybe putting a little extra work. I honestly don't know if they have or not. They could be putting in a lot of work, and I could be talking completely random now. But I think that just putting in that extra work and kind of just continuing to strive to be better each year. Like I said, that energy is really what's going to help them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then to focus more on the men's side of things, they had 2 conference wins this season, or excuse me, 1 conference win this season. They didn't have any last year. So what can they do? What are the next steps to continue to build off of this to kind of move up a little bit in PAC play? Yeah,
like we said, just little by little, kind of chipping away.
Yeah.
Like we said last year, not a very good season. This year, still not a great season, but 2 wins over 0 wins is definitely somewhat of an improvement. So I think that that's definitely helping them. And as far as what they need to do for next year, I think just working all summer on just continuing to be better. And I mean, that's easier said than done, but like I said, just continue to get reps. And I think that tennis is really just a game of routine. It's constant back and forth. And I think having the stamina to go that long, especially in a long volley, is that the right word for that?
Yeah.
And a long volley, I think that that's really what's going to help them. And also just recruits. Like having a better season this year is definitely going to help them with some freshmen that are going to come in next year. You know, obviously seeing a team that's more successful this year is going to help some people commit over the summer. So I think getting those good freshman recruits will help as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we've mentioned it, it's a building team, so it's going to be a little bit of a work in progress, but I think you're right with those new recruits. It will really help. But then focusing on the women's side of things, again, another growing team, another growing year, and you mentioned it already that a lot of them are dual athletes who play other sports and things of that nature. So what is the key for them to get 1 or 2 conference wins this year since they went 0-8 in the conference?
I think the same thing, honestly, having those freshman recruits come in. Coach Pettit has said that he has a good amount of women coming in to play for the next semester, so I think that will help them. But also, some of their star players, like I said, are dual athletes. So Aubrey Burns, Allie Bailey are both basketball players. Allie Bailey not anymore, but was before. So I think that the thing with tennis is it's kind of a secondary sport, like we said, for some of those star players, but also people really stepped up this year, like Julia Umshares, she's a freshman that stepped up this year. So I think that having people that are mainly focused on tennis is kind of who you should be focusing on if you're Coach Pettit. Obviously, people like Aubrey Burns and Allie Bailey can come in and play very well, but I think focusing on those freshmen that are solely playing tennis is really what's going to help them in the long run.
Yeah, and then just one final question for you. This is looking way ahead considering we're still wrapping up spring sports and we have a whole summer ahead of us, but looking way ahead, what do you project for both the men's and women's side when it comes to PAC play?
I think that they're going to have a much better season next year. Like I said, those recruits coming in is going to help. The freshmen that are there now are doing really well, such as Sam Norris and Ethan Clausen. They've done really well this year for the men's team. So I think just slowly building up. Obviously, we have some seniors going out, so kind of just a whole different team coming in for both teams, and I think that's going to help. And also, I think Coach Pettit is a coach that isn't going to give up. He's not going to back down. He's not going to take some losing seasons and think, oh, we're done with tennis. We're just going to stop worrying about it. I think he's going to focus up the summer and really try to grow the team as the years go by.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Mia, so much for joining us here and giving us a little feedback, a little look ahead as to what we can expect for the men's and women's tennis teams. But that'll do it for this segment. Up next is Joey Chirillo with the top 10 plays of the year.
Unable to watch the live stream? Follow our account on X for live updates on the game. Check us out on Instagram as well for game day posts with all the information you need to know, as well as behind the scenes of each production. Our social media team works the hardest to give the best content to all of our audience. We're even on TikTok. You can stay up to date with WCTV on our Instagram account with clips from each of our shows. And last but not least, subscribe to our WCTV YouTube channel to watch those shows in full length. Check us out from Lewiston, WCTV, and the entire Department of Comm.
Welcome into Jacket Sports Weekly's top 10 plays of the year. We're not doing just top 5 plays of the month. This is everything over the course of 2024-2025 academic school year, in this case covering the fall, winter, and spring sports from this past time. I'm Joe Chirillo. I'm going to be breaking it all down for you today. Let's get right into it. At number 10, we have senior Madison Dayton's game-winning kills against Bethany in sets 1 and 4. Those set up to defeat Bethany in those 4 sets, having those teammates down there as Jordan Stein, Paige Cowsley, all those other ones down there. They are doing their best to get those set up for her, getting those kills right down and below. It's just been magnificent there. Then you go over to number 9, Callista Friday's 2-pointer to tie the game against Carlo in the final 2 minutes. Friday going up for it right here. Of course, bouncing off the rim a few times, that always, you got to have that, so that way that could do that. Then she would have her career high of 35 points en route to an 80-79 overall overtime victory over Carlo. Then you move over to number 8, Farron DeWitt, who defeats Buffalo State's Renata Tumusabayer for the first ever Waynesburg win in the Rudy Marisa Fieldhouse. Then you move over to number 7, in the longest game in modern era for Waynesburg baseball, graduate student Vincent Turner smacks a 2-run homer in the bottom of the 17th inning to give Waynesburg the 13-11 win over Chatham. You have all the baseball guys hyped up around the plate, waiting for Turner to come on in and put his mark down. They would win that game against the Cougars 13-11. Then you move over to number 6 in Jules Moorbacher as she maneuvers past a few Mount Aloysius defenders. You see the 3, almost 5 defenders coming up on her. Then she finds her way through the path, finds it up, kicks it to the left corner. That goes in, breaks the 0-0 tie there late in the first period. Moorbacher scores that one. Then you move over to number 5, PJ Suggs blocks a shot on defense right there. And then Waynesburg able to collect it there from Hooper, gives it to Bilovis, then back to Suggs, goes up, lays it up, puts that one in. Bethany is then able to get the win over Waynesburg, 87-80 there against Bethany. Then you move over to number 4, Tyler Richmond catches a 19-yard touchdown pass from Samuel Barber on the 3rd and goal en route to defeat the Teal Tomcats, 37-10. Then you move over to number 3, Sarpong Quabia with a free goal kick. Wow, what an arch. That one goes right over off the hands of the goalie in to break that 1-1 tie there late in the second. That one goes for a 2-1 win over Lancaster Bible. Then you move over to number 2 in Sydney Wilson, who breaks the all-time school strikeout record in a 7-0 win against St. Elizabeth in South Carolina. They're celebrating Sydney Wilson there. She continues to press on that with multiple strikeouts throughout the season. Then you move to the number 1 play there. In that left-hand box, you have Jesse Orbit, who takes down Noah Barkley from St. Vincent to claim his first career PAC championship. That is going to do it all for the top 10 plays of the year. Thank you very much for tuning in to Jacket Sports Weekly and all the plays of the month and year. We'll be back in the fall. Coming up next is Dean Shazer with baseball.
Welcome in back to the analyst side of things after taking a quick look at the top 10 plays of the year. But now joining me to talk about baseball is Dean Shazer. We're wrapping up the season here. So thank you, Dean, for joining on the last episode here.
Anytime.
Really appreciate it. So baseball, they split against Chatham. Historical win in that 17-inning game. But then split, lost the next game 14-5. Dropped both on senior day against Geneva. Now they have Teal coming up this Saturday. And Teal sits 6th right now in the pack. So these are really important games for Teal to win to kind of cushion to make sure that they're comfortably into that tournament. So how can the team end on a high note considering the fact that they are already out of playoff contention?
Well, it's a simple answer. 3-letter word, win. W-I-N, that's how it's spelled, which this team hasn't done much of this season. 7-28 overall, I believe, is what I looked at it, and they're 3-15 in PAC play. So really you can't get yourself out of last place, so the only thing to do taking it into next season is win. And unfortunately, talking to some of the baseball guys, that game is on Saturday, which is after finals week, and they have to travel 2 hours to Teal College to play a doubleheader, which it's going to be hard to stay motivated during a game where you're really playing for nothing and you know school is out for everyone else, and really this game means absolutely nothing. But taking it into next season, assuming Michael Imperiatelli is still the head coach for next year, you can win.
Yeah.
And finish the season 9-28 overall, I guess, is better than 7-30.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the simple answer there is win. Like Vincent Turner had us feeling nicey. They had us feeling nicey with a walk-off 2-run shot in the 17th inning that you touched on. Bullpen pitched great in that game, and I know I'm yapping. This is about the general recap of what has gone on. And on senior day, 11-5 loss against Geneva in that first game. You're up 5-3 going in the 8th inning. The relief pitching wasn't there. You let up 8 runs in the last 2 innings. And this team, especially being at the bottom of every statistical main category, such as batting average, runs batted in, total runs, and team ERA of 8.6, which is not just bad. It's bad.
It's just,
And
that's
the department they struggled in all year was pitching. So less than 3 runs, maybe more than 5 runs. Get the offense going, lock down the batters on the opposite side for the Tomcats, and get a win. Get 2 wins.
Absolutely. And then we've mentioned some of their faults, some of where the team is struggling a little bit, areas that they can improve in. But Dean, if there are any, what are some good takeaways that this team can carry into next season to start to build back some of that success? Last year, they went to the PAC tournament, won the first round, lost in the second to Washington and Jefferson. So what are some things that they can carry into next season to continue to build on some success?
I believe something that they can carry into next season is just confidence, straight up confidence. You're losing a lot of seniors, a lot of your core guys, Alec Inglemore, Matthew Gaskell, Aiden Williams, Seth Bergdahl. Those are the only two hitters in the Waynesburg lineup, by the way, that are top 100 in batting average in PAC play. Bergdahl in the 80s, and Aiden Williams is top 26, batting around 350. But just being excited to have opportunities next season, that's something you can carry over, because as I mentioned, the statistics weren't there. And as much as I raved about how this team needs to field, they're actually middle of the pack in fielding percentage with a 95% fielding percentage as a whole. I know that doesn't mean much going into this, but as bad as I talked about them, they weren't abysmal. So there's something they could carry over. Playing fundamentally sound, knowing that at least your gloves have woke up after the first few weeks, and also just talking about filling these gaps of some of the guys that are going to be moving on, names that I already mentioned. Just be excited to have the opportunities next season, and you have to understand, first-year head coach with, brand new team, he doesn't know anyone. It should help going into next season, having some form of familiarity and possibly being a little bit more comfortable, because this is a team that was ranked supposed to be 4th in the President's Athletic Conference going into the season, and they achieved nowhere near that, as they are the 11th team in the President's Athletic Conference. So just be excited for new opportunities, and this team is young, a lot of bright sophomores, Garrett Comer, Jordan Mosley, to name a few. Ethan Earhart's going to be there next year, going to have a veteran pitcher on the mound, even though he struggled this year, back on track next year. Just play with confidence and be excited to have new opportunities.
Yeah, and just real quick, final question for you, Dean. You've already touched upon some of the seniors that this team is losing. So because of the seniors within the starting positions of the catcher, center fielder, shortstop, left field, right field, and even first base, and at the mound, what are the main groups that this team needs to fill position-wise to be successful next year?
As I mentioned the void that they need to fill in terms of relief pitching. Yeah, they pitched well in that game against Chatham that went 17 and was a low-scoring ball game, even with 2-run home run in the end. Just try to find some pitchers, look around the Whippeal. I know Waynesburg doesn't recruit much Whippeal, especially for football. I know this is the baseball segment, but I don't get it. Whippeal has some of the best pure talent, and a lot of the Whippeal guys want to stay in Western Pennsylvania, which is why Waynesburg should be not a hot spot per se, but the President's Athletic Conference as a whole should be a hot spot area for pure Whippeal guys.
Yeah.
And so look through the Whippeal, look for some relief pitching. I know relief pitching isn't really a position in high school. Well, it is, but
it's almost there.
Yeah,
it's almost there.
It varies. They probably start, and if they're starters, they become relief pitchers in college is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
And so just look around the WPIAL. That's my biggest thing. That's my biggest pet peeve about Waynesburg athletics is they don't recruit Southwestern Pennsylvania athletes as much as they should.
As two athletes coming from the Whippeal.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit biased.
Maybe a little bit.
We got a lot here who are former Whippeal people, but in terms of pitching, got to be better, and you got to fix those games going into next year where you beat teams like Pitt Greensburg 23-8, and then you turn around in the second game of the doubleheader and you lose 12-11 in extras. How's that happen? If you beat a team, you're better, you get too comfortable. Comfortability creates chaos, and chaotic times mean, I don't know.
Bad losses
blunders.
Like that.
Blunders, absolute blunders, and this team's had a lot of them. But going into next year, just filling those voids of like we said, there's a lot of positions to fill. There's a lot of guys in the clubhouse right now that will step up, that are going to step up, and hopefully they're ranked 11th going into next year, so maybe they finish top 4.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Well, thank you, Dean, for joining us to talk about baseball one last time this year. We
Your
really
last time
appreciate
on
it.
here.
Yes,
So,
it is. It's
congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's
Yep.
very bittersweet here on Jacket Sports Weekly, but we have one more segment to talk about the softball team, so don't go anywhere. You're watching Jacket Sports Weekly.
I'm working here. My bad.
Welcome back into the final segment of JSW, and we are going to be talking about the Waynesburg University softball team with none other than my good friend, Seth Adams. Seth, welcome in.
Thank you. Last one of the year.
Yeah.
Let's break down the chaos that
Yeah.
has really been going on.
Chaos is the best way to describe
last
it.
week, yeah.
That's for sure, because they split against Westminster.
Huge.
You and I got to announce the win, which was amazing. But actively right now, because it is 2 o'clock on the dot as we're recording this, so
On Monday.
on Monday, yes, it is Monday, 2 o'clock. So right now, they are resuming their game against Bethany that was stopped due to darkness.
Yeah.
And when the game was stopped, it was in the 8th inning, tied 8-8.
Yeah.
So this resumed game can take 20 minutes. It can take an hour. It could take the whole day. We don't know.
It could take 5 minutes.
Yeah, it literally could take 5 minutes because it ended mid-inning. So as of right now, this team is in 6th place after their split with Westminster. If they win this game against Bethany today, they're pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah, if they win, they're in.
Yeah. So with that mindset,
Yeah.
expecting them to win, what needs to happen transitioning into the PAC tournament for this team to be successful moving forward?
They got to get the bats rolling a little bit better. We were talking about the Westminster split that they had. The first game they lost 3-0. They had 1 hit. They almost got no hit by Cheyenne Piper, who is a freshman who, don't get me wrong, is absolutely outstanding. She had 135 strikeouts going into that game. But still, the bats have not been clicking like they were not too long ago. I mean, in the game 2, they had 5, which is better. This is Westminster. This was top of the conference Westminster, which they got the split to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Yeah.
But the bats got to get rolling a little bit better. Almost being no hit in game 1. In game 2, you got some in there. But the 1-1 was from a Grace Higgins home run in left field, which was awesome. And then the other one was off of a sac fly. Most of their hits coming in that first inning or the first half. They got to get it offensively. They got to lock in a little bit because the pitching, Sydney Wilson can hold down any team no matter
absolutely.
what. She pitched all 14 innings on Saturday. She's fine. We don't have to worry about her. But the batting, we need to pick it up maybe a little bit on that department.
Yeah, I agree. Just watching them from spring break to now, the bats definitely have grown stale. So I think that'll be their biggest challenge going into this tournament. But, you know, we have the classic underdog story. The same exact thing happened last year, where they went in as the 6th seed, played all the way through, beating Allegheny, who was number 1, played all the way through, and lost to Westminster.
Yeah.
In the final game of the series, by the way.
1-0.
Yes.
1-0.
Lost 1-0 to Westminster.
Yeah.
So final underdog story. And if they make it this year, that'll be it again.
Yeah.
So do you see the same thing happening?
Absolutely. This team they can win any game they want. Grove City, who they got swept by and they beat earlier in the year, they're not going to get blown out at any proportion at all. They're going to compete. They lost to Grove City by 1 run every time, or they beat them by 1 run every time they played each other.
Yeah.
They are so solid, and it doesn't even matter what seed they are. They're going to battle and do exactly what they did last year if they get the 6th seed. And I see them being in the chip once again because it's double elimination. And this team always somehow seems to either split or win.
Yeah.
So I think they got a good shot.
They make it win.
And
They make
especially,
it work.
yeah, they lost to Westminster 2 out of the 3 times they played them in the chip last year. And this year they got the split with them. So I could see
They're being competitive.
they're competitive all the time. This team is so solid. Even though the hitting hasn't been there, like I said, this team is still so solid, and they get runs in when they need them most. I mean, 3-0 loss and a 2-0 win. This team battles every time. There's no big proportion or big change in anything. I think this team can compete and will compete, and I think they're going to the chip again this year.
Honestly, I might be biased because I have a really good connection with the softball team and I've gone on the spring break trips with them, but I also see them being very successful. But I just have that confidence level in them.
I do, yeah.
Like, I think they'll do great.
Yeah, and Coach Brunson has done a great job at keeping the same momentum that he's had last season going into this year. They have almost the same exact record. They're 9-10 right now. If they win today in the Bethany 8th, whatever, they'll be 10-10 in conference again.
Yeah.
They'll have a 24-15 record. There are 6 teams with a 20-plus win overall record in this conference. Talk about a stacked conference in general.
Softball has grown heavily since my freshman year. It was always the clear cut, like Waynesburg's they were the best team. And then my junior year, out of nowhere, it was like, boom, competitive conference. But my last question for you, Seth, is looking into next year, what are some needs for this team, especially after they're going to be losing this strong senior class with people like Sydney Wilson and Grace Higgins? Like, where are some gaps that they're going to need to fill to be successful next year?
Sydney Wilson being gone is going to be huge. She is your number 1, and she also has done pretty well batting for you as too. But yeah, Sydney Wilson, 1.87 ERA, 13-5. She is so solid. So her being gone, they got to find a new number 1. Yeah. Autumn Stemple has dealt with some injuries this year. She will probably be back for next year, and we'll see her. But like, we got to find a solid number 2, and we've seen that with Madison Baker and Presley Meadows. They got some time in there, and they've kind of adapted a little bit. They are freshmen; they're figuring it out still. But it's a good start. It's a good initial step forward in that direction. When it comes to hitting, I mean, you're still going to have Mesa Heitman. She's still batting .398. She'll be fine. But I'd say go into your depth a little bit. You have a lot of players who still have pretty solid averages who are on the bench. I mean, Katie Sullivan she's played in 8 games and she has a .500 batting average. So maybe use what you got. You've got a team that you have a lot of bench players that I feel can still be very effective in this lineup.
Yeah.
So I'd say just dig into what you have and use it. Use it while you got it.
Absolutely, and I definitely think another year of head coach Chris Brunson will just help build even further with this team. Thank you, Seth, for rounding off our last segment here on Jacket Sports Weekly. Thank you for your time on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
And thank you for your time on the show.
Thank you. I feel like a senior citizen, but that's okay.
You're an old woman.
I'm definitely old. But anyway, that's all we have for this episode of Jacket Sports Weekly. Don't worry. We'll be back in the fall for more content on Waynesburg University sports. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. On behalf of myself, Meg Barry, and everybody in front of the camera and behind the camera, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and God bless.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.